They said, Chris, you need to get a lawyer. We need to see you down at our office. We need to talk about why you've been taking money. And Chris gave me a look that said, like, you've ruined my life. What have you done? You brought me into your mess. What have you done? Well, Chris and I got Chris a lawyer. And prior to him meeting with the lawyer in the FBI, we came up with an idea that he too should lie to the FBI to claim that he actually was on the payroll and that he was working to bring money into my client's hedge fund. And Chris said, okay, I'll do it. He's scared. And the next morning, when meeting with the FBI agents, they said, is there anything you'd like to tell us? And Chris said, yes, there is. Justin told me that I should come in and lie to you guys today. See, that's really relevant because not only did I have the securities fraud come in and the perjury, now I have obstruction of justice. And shortly after that, I read that my client had pled guilty to one count of conspiracy and that he was cooperating against me this whole time. I read the press release. And then my lawyers called me and said, you're looking at maybe seven years in federal prison, 7 years in jail. And I said, well, how long is my client looking at? They said maybe 2 years in jail. And I said, you've got to be kidding me, with a lot of swear words in between and a lot of cigarettes and some wine too. You've got to be insane that he's looking at 2 years, I'm looking at 7. How can that be? I found out he had been running this fraud for 5 years before he was ever a client of mine. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why all of you need to know. You may not start a fraud. You may not really perpetuate it. You may get involved on the periphery. But those who cooperate first with the Department of Justice, those who own it and come clean, are treated the best. Those that cooperate get the best deals. So even though my client started it, the FBI liked that he was telling the truth. They liked that he had come forward. They didn't like that I lied. My charges, they told me my cover-up was worse than my actual crime of keeping my mouth shut when an investor was going to deposit $4 million. I couldn't believe it. That was worse than that, the cover-up. So I'm looking at 7 years. It's sobering. It's a big number. But still, I was sort of so drained and so sick that I had convinced myself that truly I had done nothing wrong, that it was my client and my senior business partner, and it was everyone else putting me in this situation. And ultimately, I begged my lawyers to set up a lie detector test, something that I could prove to the government that I was innocent. My lawyers sort of chuckled and said, I'll schedule a lie detector test. But Justin, I beg you not to cheat. You cannot cheat this exam. It will not work. And I told him, I'm stunned that you think I would cheat. I won't do so. I'm going to pass the exam. I'm innocent. I promise. It was the culture. It was UBS. I didn't start out to do it. He said, fine. It's $5,000 for the lie detector test. Nothing. You're talking about your freedom and your life in prison. $5,000 is nothing, I told myself. So after I got off the phone with my lawyer, after him telling me not to cheat, I did what a lot of men in federal prison do. I tried to cheat my way through the lie detector exam. I downloaded a course for a few $100. I still have the receipt as a little memento. I downloaded a course for a few $100. I called a guy on the phone and said, I'm considering taking your course. He said, why? I said, I have a government job next week. He said, take it, you'll pass. I said, great. For like 12 hours a day for a week, I studied, tried to cheat this exam. Day in and day out, have to hold your breath when appropriate, squeeze your, when really appropriate. Certain questions would come, I'd tense. You have to do like a little technique with your right big toe. Some really cool stuff, man. I was working. My friends and family didn't see me for a week. I was home practicing. It was a very big deal. And then I went up to San Francisco a week later for this exam. And when the former FBI agent that presided over the exam asked me the question, I tensed up when I was supposed to, tapped my foot when I should, convinced that I would pass. Well, after the exam, the FBI agent said with like a 99.999, he said the 9 like 7 times. I finally said, I get it, man. I didn't pass the exam. He said it a bunch of times. It was quite annoying. I'll never forget it. He said it like 9 times, the third 9. And I asked my lawyer to interrupt that I had failed the exam. And I remember standing there in San Francisco. Ironically, I was looking out to Alcatraz. And I remember thinking that was actually the lowest point. I'll tell you why. Because my former life of lies and delusions, of hurting my family, of shutting out my parents, spending money on lawyers, lying to them, blaming everybody but myself, all of that yielded to the new reality, which was, the new reality was federal prison. I knew it. I had nowhere else to go. And I asked my lawyers, what's next? And they said, you're going to have to go home and plead guilty. you're going to have to go in front of the judge and tell him that you did it. So I went home that afternoon. I was home about 3 o'clock, and that's when I called my parents and asked them to meet me for dinner. After I'd failed that lie detector test, after I knew that I was going to plead guilty. And it was that night that I told them that I was going to federal prison. Well, a little while after that, I did plead guilty. I pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit securities fraud. And I didn't fully realize the ramifications that would follow a guilty plea. I didn't. I just didn't. I wanted to get it over with. I still didn't think I was going to go to jail. I was really in la-la land. And I'll tell you when I felt it. I felt it the day before my guilty plea. My lawyers called to tell me that the Department of Justice was going to issue a press release pertaining to my case. And I begged the lawyers. I said, please, if do anything, do not have a press release with my name in it. I'll rescind my plea. I'll take it to trial. Thinking I had some bargaining power over the U.S. attorney. And they said, great, we'll take him to trial. Because the U.S. attorney said, we have to issue a press release. It's a deterrent for executives and students like you, because you need to know what happens when you cheat. That's exactly what the U.S. attorney said. And I said to my lawyers, will it be out tomorrow? They said, oh yeah, it's already written. So immediately after my guilty plea, 2007, the Department of Justice issued a press release that said, account manager at major brokerage firm pleads guilty in securities fraud case. And it was very troubling. I knew it was coming. And then shortly after that, it was at midday, I went over to Starbucks, about 2 blocks from my home. I walked, I was smoking, I was still drinking, I wasn't driving, which was good. I walked in, I decided to get a cup of coffee and a scone. And I'll tell you what I underestimated as well, the power of the press. Because as I walked out, I picked up a Los Angeles Times, and my Lord, there it was, a huge cover of the Los Angeles Times that says, UBS broker pleads guilty to fraud. And my knees buckled. They had never buckled before, and I played baseball in front of 20,000 people. I'd never been nervous. I was nervous when I read that in the LA Times. So I did what some of you might do if you ever read your name on the cover of the paper. I bought every single paper in the damn Starbucks. I bought 15 papers. I went to Whole Foods. I went to Trader Joe's. I went to 7-Eleven. I dropped like $170 on papers. All I could, and I threw them out as I went along the way. I was walking too. Bottom, throw them out, bottom, throw them out. I was so used to flushing money down the toilet. What's another $170? Well, I hadn't quite seen the power of the internet as well. Hadn't picked up steam yet. So then I went home, and there it was. I sat down, I pulled up my Mac, and I entered my name in Google. If you don't Google my name while I'm in the room, do you have internet access? I hope not. It's not good. I Googled my name, and there it was. People were blogging about me. Some people blog all day. I don't know how they get paychecks. They're blogging about me. They're blogging about me, hoping that bad things happen to me in prison, taking pleasure in my misery. And I Googled my name again and again and again and again. And then, of course, my parents Googled my name. My father had never been on the internet before. He found a way he got on to Google my name. And my mother called and said, this is disastrous. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. What do I tell my friends? And I said, I don't have any answers for you. This is really bad. I have no idea, Ma. I got to go, though. And in April of 2008, I was sentenced to 18 months. The government initially wanted 5 years. I told them that I was sorry, told them that I was remorseful. I turned over all my money. You know what? The government bought it. I told the victims at that sentencing hearing that I felt terrible, that I was sorry that I helped ruin their life. Let me be really clear. I didn't feel bad. I didn't. I was only upset that I was going to go to jail, and I said I felt bad because I wanted the best possible sentence. I didn't want to go to prison. And you know what? The court bought it. They bought it. I only got 18 months. I served a year in a federal prison camp. Big deal. It was a joke. It was nothing. It was the best part. I'd have done 5 years so I don't have to deal with the next 5 of what I go through now. I've done 5 times more. That's how easy a federal prison camp was. At first it wasn't so easy, of course. When I surrendered to prison in April 2008, I was taken aback by the fact that some of the men they didn't like me that much. I was surprised. I like to joke that I think I'm somewhat likable. Maybe you don't think I'm somewhat likable. I don't know. And they didn't like me because, and it took me a while to get it, it's the same reason they don't like any of the white-collar offenders, and it's the same reason they wouldn't like any of you if you went to prison for a white-collar crime. Because I had these privileges that a lot of these men can dream of. And it sounds cliche, and maybe it's tiring, but let me remind all of you, if you ever went to prison, you'd have no responsibility to go. You'd have no excuse. You can reason. You know right from wrong. If anything, your crime would be more egregious because you can reason. You do know right from wrong. You have coaches and teachers and professors that teach you to do better. That's the reason they didn't like me when they looked at me. And I hated that look.